Okay, you can see your workflow as a way to get stuff done, or you can see it as the process from going from nothing to a finished track. Every producer will have a different workflow, even though we all basically do the same thing throughout the process. Beginning producers have a lot to learn about music production, so it's understandable that workflow isn't really at the top of their list. I mean, first you have to learn the basics of your DAW, how EQ and compression works, reverb, and so on. But once you have your basic music production skills down and you start to finish tracks, if you're serious about your music, you're gonna have to start paying attention to the speed, efficiency, and consistency of your music making. I put timestamps in the description if you want to jump through to a specific part or touch back on something you were watching. And hey, if you enjoyed, please throw a like on this video to help share it with more like-minded people like yourselves. And if not, hit that dislike button to show me how much you really don't like it. Either way, there's a couple things that if you do them right, can easily double your workflow and your creative output. Your workflow is crucial. It basically determines how much you're gonna get done, which basically means how fast and how consistently you're going to be finishing songs. It's also really beneficial to your growth as a producer because the better and more you work, the more skills and experiences you gather. An ideal workflow will make it easier for you to get into the creative headspace that you need to be in and get more quality tracks done on a more consistent basis. All right, my first tip that I have for you guys, name your tracks or your samples or basically just everything. Name everything. Give it a name. Because something I can absolutely guarantee you I do not look forward to coming back to a week later is a folder with a bunch of sessions named whatever.wave, blue sky with vocals.wave, or I don't know remix. Like, you can't do anything with that. One of the most unprofessional things you can do is make somebody else's job harder for no reason, or even your own. Always include the key, BPM, and whoever's involved in the name of any session that you make. It just makes it easier to make edits, send stuff over to other engineers, or basically just to find stuff on your computer. This is the name template that I use for all my sessions. I highly recommend you use it. It just makes everything way easier for everyone, everywhere. Tip number 2, use Ableton key commands. But since you're kind of doing the same process over and over again with like a bunch of different tracks when you're producing, it just saves up a bunch of time in your workflow and just makes everything a lot easier to move around. Also, I've linked the official Ableton shortcut list down in the description below for you guys. Funny enough, when I first started working in Ableton, I actually printed that exact list out on a physical sheet of paper and taped it to my wall until I memorized all the ones that I needed. Do whatever works best for you. And I actually learned them really quickly. A study from Brainscape even estimated that you could save up to 64 hours per year just by using shortcuts. Imagine how much more stuff you can get done if you had 64 more hours to work on music every year. That's like 3 whole days. Either way, it does take a little bit of time to memorize them, but sooner than later you do, and it becomes second nature. And at that point, you really don't even have to think about what key you're pressing. It's kind of like playing a video game. Top 5 key commands I think you should know just right off the top of my head would be save, new audio track, new MIDI track, split a clip, and duplicate. I feel like with those 5, you can definitely work a lot faster than you could without knowing them. But I got the whole list of key commands in the description for you. Let's go. Tip number 3, color code your selections. So if you were to just go and start working in Ableton, eventually you just start looking at like a mess of different colors and different shapes, and like it's just a nightmare. Whether you like to color code different instruments, buses, groups, different selections of the song, color coding helps so much with arrangement, groups, cuts and drops, and basically whatever you want to use it for. All you do is highlight the selection, right click on it, and there's a whole list of colors you can choose from. Tip number 4, computer folders. Yeah, I said it. Look, having a sloppy computer is an absolute nightmare. Hundreds of files on your desktop, a stack of documents and sounds in your downloads folder. Oh my God, I'm tripping. Not only is this horrible for your CPU, but how do you actually expect to find anything? I'll wait for a real answer. Organizing folders on your computer is essential to literally getting anything done. That way you can just make separate folders for every session, and it just takes a lot of stress off your shoulders, you know what I mean? I mean, I make folders and subfolders for everything from my photography to my digital art to my music to the YouTube videos you're watching right now. It just makes everything so much easier to find and looks so much more professional when you're like sending stuff to other people. All right, tip number 632, a clean workspace. Obviously, not only is it a better work environment, it improves your efficiency, your time management, and actually helps reduce stress, which I think in the long run helps you feel more confident and really just makes it easier to think, which basically is the whole point of what we're trying to do here, right? Not only is it easier to find things, but the equipment you spent your hard-earned money on will last longer. A few benefits of having a clean, organized workspace are obviously it helps you stay organized. You can finally put away those pens or those cables you took out. Maybe there's still a microphone set up in the middle of your room from like a week ago that you still haven't taken down yet. A few tips and tricks to having a clean, organized workspace are: don't eat at your desk. I know this one's a little hard, but just don't do it. Even as little as sitting nearby or setting aside time in your schedule to eat beforehand can actually go a really long way. And this one sounds kind of small, but have a trash can nearby. Kind of speaks for itself, right? Pick up your trash. And my last tip for you guys, and certainly not the least one, make quality time for your music. A lot of people think they don't have enough time to make music. And for a select few, I mean, it's true. But for most, it isn't. For most musicians, or most people in general, they really think they're busy when they're actually not. Or they're under the impression that they need 4 or more hours a day to work on music. So before I keep going, I want to make a little focal shift between those of you who are making music out there just as a hobby because you enjoy doing it, and those of you who are wanting to take your music to the next level and look at it from a little bit more of a professional, standpoint. If making music is just a hobby for you and you really just purely enjoy doing it, do whatever you want. Whatever's fun. That's kind of it, right? If you really want to make music full time and build a brand off of what you do, well, that's very different. Let's reference Greg McCohen from the Harvard Business Review for a second. It says, "We have a problem. And the odd thing is we not only know about it, we're celebrating it. The asset we're overvaluing now is the notion of doing it all, having it all, achieving it all. What Jim Collins calls the undisciplined pursuit of more." Don't get me wrong, you do have to work really hard to get where you want to be, regardless of what that goal looks like, But blindly working countless hours in a day because it's quote unquote what everybody does is kind of just bad advice. One issue with the long hours in the studio ideology is everyone who doesn't have the luxury to log such hours, like if you have a job or you're a student or you have children or something, the list goes on. Basically, they're all left feeling like they're screwed, right? And understandably so. If like 12-hour workdays are what artists nowadays are crediting to their success, how can you blame them? But like I said, this is kind of really bad advice. Let's talk about a few ways you can delegate the time you already have to be more beneficial to your success so you can start creating more. Well, I think we all know that being distracted limits our ability to be creative. And we all know that we can get more done in 2 hours of work than we can in 4 to 6 hours of broken, distracted work, or at least I know I can. If you're constantly being distracted, interrupted by social media, and you're not structuring your time properly, it's easy to spend a full 12-hour day in the studio. And the reason it's easy to make it simple is because you're really not fully engaging your mind. And you really don't ever feel that sense of accomplishment or get anything done. Or maybe you do, but it takes you 12 hours. Anders Ericsson, the guy who came up with the theory of deliberate practice, wrote a paper in 1993 called "The Role of Deliberate Practice in the Acquisition of Expert Performance." And in it, he notes that there's a limit to the amount of cognitively demanding work an individual can do. Ericsson notes that for a novice, somewhere around an hour a day of intense concentration seems to be a limit, while for expert, this number can expand to as many as 4 hours, but rarely more. One of the studies cited catalogs that practice habits of elite violin players training in Berlin. The elite players averaged around 3.5 hours per day in a state of deliberate practice, usually separated in 2 distinct periods. Are they practicing for 12 hours a day? No, because it's impossible. I mean, they're performing a highly demanding task. And the same goes without saying for the at-home musician. You can excel at your craft even if you have a full-time job. Half a day is not necessary. Deliberate practice and concentration is hard, but it's something that has to be trained. One of the first things I tried, and honestly one of the best ways you can really help with this, is put your phone away. Some people may say, what's wrong with checking my phone occasionally during a production session, Wayne? Well, let's say you commit to a 90-minute focused production session, right? You set a goal, set the timer, and get started. What's wrong with checking your phone during the next 90 minutes? After all, it only takes a couple seconds to light the screen, tap the home button, and check to see if anything important happened, right? Well, those few seconds actually result in a lot more than just a few seconds of diffused concentration. And that's in a best case scenario. As in, you only have 1 or 2 notifications that aren't urgent at all. You also deal with the cost of task switching, which is also known as attention residue. This simply means you're going to be thinking about it for minutes after knowing about it, which affects your attention. Yo, pause. Obviously, if you have something scheduled, like a session or something serious in your family, answer your phone, don't avoid your life, but otherwise put it away, we got shit to do. Hey, the ability to concentrate is a skill, and it takes a lot of time to develop that. So don't feel like you need to start off at the highest level. If anything, you'll probably just burn yourself out. Start small. Try to spend 1 hour per day focused on music production only. And if that's too much for you, whatever, start smaller than that. Anything is something. Adding structure to your production is a really useful tool, and one easy way to do that is to set a time limit for things. Blocking out time and physically scheduling your time for your music both helps with your accountability and actually sticking to your schedule. It structures your time a bit wiser, and you also achieve more of your micro goals that'll eventually build up to much larger goals in the future. Those are just a few techniques that I've personally used and adopted into my everyday life that have noticeably changed the way that I work and have easily cut my workflow time in half. Hey, I really hope I helped you out in some way, and if you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button. Leave a comment down below about which one of these tips you think is the best. And if you are new around here looking for a way back... What am I doing? Please hit that subscribe button, ring the little bell to know when I post my next video. Thank you for sticking around to the end, and like always, good luck with your music.